So for Logi, you have the minimum is Logi 4, the Logistics Cruiser 4 skill. You have to have at least that. Under that, you are not even close to cap stable enough to fly a T2 Logistics Cruiser. And even with Logi 4, you are going to seriously have to watch your cap because they are notoriously uncap stable, even with all 5s. So with 4, you are just hurting yourself in quite a number of ways, but you can get away with it. For fits, you just kind of need the Tech 2 armor, Tech 2 shields for the Scimitar and the Tech 2 armor for the Guardian. You do want tank before gank as per the usual, as well as quite a bit of cap skill. You want all of your cap skills, preferably to 5, but at a minimum to 4. Cap management being the only one you shouldn't have at cap management being the only one that is kind of okay not being at 5 when you first start out.
So you said just earlier you can get away with being a little bit cap unstable. How do I do that?
So the thing about it is Logi by and large tends not to be cap stable for the reason that Logi pilots very much have to pay attention to their capacitor. So the way you do that is by not running your hardeners until they go to shoot at you, which you can see when everyone starts yellow boxing you. Just turn on your hardeners then. Also, other tactics include not running all 3 reps at once, which is generally pretty fine. Not running them the entire time.
So you mean staggering them?
Yes. So staggering, and same with staggering your hardeners if you do leave them on, as well as not necessarily using them. So dropping 3 reps, and then if the person's catching reps, you can turn 1 off, and then now you're only using 2, ergo you're using less cap and spending less cap. Again, Logi is very much a battle against whether your cap will hold out long enough to rep the people that are dying.
What exactly do you mean with staggering?
So staggering is just a simple thing of, so you click 1 rep, you wait till it gets to about half cycle, then you click the next one. So
I get it.
What that does is, so not everything comes from your cap at 1 second. It takes, and then it takes the next one, which gives it a slight chance to recharge. That extra little point of recharge. So it could be the difference between, being relatively stable and not by staggering.
With regards to that, if say somebody's getting primary, would it be worth cycling all of them at least once and turning them off and then staggering them after that?
Yeah,
or just staggering them immediately?
So the idea is, if someone's getting primaried and they're dropping something quick, like dropping all 3 on them is not a bad idea, and then staggering them afterwards, because shield reps do apply instantly. Armor reps, slightly different. Obviously, they apply at the end of the cycle, so you have to treat those slightly different from shield reps. But dropping them all on them right away is not a bad thing, and then you can just stagger them afterwards. Slowly stagger as you go up.
So, about the new T2 Logi frigates, which one would be best to train into to supplement the ships that we fly a lot?
That's really a doctrine decision. Based on the
that's
FCC.
not what I'm asking. I'm asking which ship I would train to be more useful. What the doctrine is going to be.
I cannot tell you what the FC. That is up to the FC team to decide. They are the ones that decide which ones they're going to use.
Right. Let me rephrase it. Which one is best for shield and which one is best for armor?
It depends. So if you're using a brawling doctrine, the Kieran is pretty good. If you're using kind of harpies or kitey doctrines, the scalpel is the better choice there. For armor, it's much the same, and the reasons are pretty obvious as per the ship bonuses, the reduction in SIG, and everything. But that is just my opinion. I have no clue what the FC team is doing, so you would have to ask them how they are planning on doing it.
In faction warfare and just general, as opposed to general PvP realms, how prevalent in each is like subcruiser Logi?
So subcruiser Logi in the faction warfare would be quite popular, especially considering the fact that in smalls and novices you cannot get the T2 logistics frigate, or obviously the large Logi cruisers. So in that case, you go back to the Burst and the Inquisitor, which are the two better Logi frigs for various reasons.
Note you can have T2 Logifrix in smalls since
Did they change
yesterday.
that today?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So they changed that last patch, 2 days ago, or I guess a
Yeah,
day
yeah.
ago. Yeah. Right. So now, so now that'll just make them more prevalent. So the T2 in faction warfare, because most of fights tend to take place in the smalls and the novices, the subcap Logi is very important.
And how much better is the T2 Logifrig rather than the T1? Like twice as good, or I don't know.
So it adds some nice bonuses to the ships, which is really the good part. So like if you look at, say, the Scalpel, it is now much tankier, not due to a straight HP buff, but due to the fact that it's actually not as hittable. As well as the fact that it does get a bonus to actual repping power in the reduction of the duration and activation costs, which means it costs less cap, and it the duration doesn't last as long, so you get more cycles in. So it actually reps quite a bit more, and it's a sizable difference once you get that skill up. So at 5, that's a 25% reduction in duration and activation costs.
If I overheat a remote wrapper, does it only increase the cycle or decrease the cycle time, or will it improve other things as well?
So it actually decreases the cycle time, which is pretty nice. Obviously, it lowers the duration of the cycle by, I believe, 15% on large reps, on large metaphor reps, but you still get the same amount, but you get them faster, so in the end, it reps more.
Which definitely means you need to watch on your cap even more than before.
Because the faster the cycle time means more cap drain, means you got to pay even more attention. Because, like, it reduces your cap significantly. Like, all 5's scythes take something like, they only have, with overheating of your reps and your hardeners and off, then you're looking at 2 minutes and 53 seconds as compared to the stable you are if you're not running your hardeners, or 13 minutes 12 seconds if you're not running your hardeners but running all 3 reps and the afterburner. So you can see the difference there in time considerably. So it goes from 13 minutes to 2:53. So there's kind of the difference in how much that cycle time applies towards your cap usage.
How do I avoid drifting out? Like sometimes I hear a lot of GFCs saying you're getting too close or you're not in formation. So what's the best way to avoid that?
So usually, just orbiting 2,500 works perfectly fine. But sometimes due to skills or what have you, a lot of times it's due to skills, you will be slightly slower than your Logi anchor, and that's not uncommon to see. So partly they're just trying to tell you should overheat your micro or your afterburner, depending on which one you're using, to just get back up with the pack. If you're too close, that's just changing your orbit distance, but generally just orbiting 2,500 keeps you well at the range that you need to be, assuming your skills are relatively equal.
Also, I just add in here that like 90% of the time, if you're drifting off, it's just because you like have a sensitive mouse or something, and you accidentally double clicked in space, and that's pretty much just paying attention, or anyone paying attention to call other people, hey, you're off anchor, get back up here. Like, yeah, can't really do much about that. It just happens to everyone. Just try not to double click in space.
Yeah, just be careful about where you're looking, and just kind of look at your Logi anchor, which you can have locked so that you get that nice crosshair, and so you can see where he's at. You can also use the tactical overlay and have him left clicked, so he's in your selected items, and that'll draw a line between your ship and yours, between the two ships, and so you can see about how far away you are.
I feel a bit bad about asking all these questions, maybe not giving everyone equal chance, but I have a few questions about fitting. Well, it's like a few of them, so if someone else wants to go first, yeah. Alright, so in small gang, like very small gang setups, where you might have only one Logi ship, do you think you can get away with going with one Logi ship that has a local rep as well as a remote rep person? How do you do that actually?
So the thing about it is, for ones where you're just having solo Logi, having a local rep is obviously not a bad thing. It will hurt you at points, obviously your cap life, and as well as your overall. Your overall tank will probably be better, but your cap life will hurt for it. So it may be harder if you're being shot at as well as having to rep someone else who's also being shot at. It's just very much a game of playing cap management. Logi is consistently a fight against your cap management. And adding a local rep just adds yet another thing you have to pay attention to. That's not to say it's not a good thing to do if you're the only Logi ship, because again, you die, so does the fleet, or your small gang. But it is very much something you just have to pay attention to. You gotta be ever.
Don't you need a cap booster at least if you're pulling that trick off?
So the thing about it is, it really depends. A lot of Logi ships, if you are cap stable for over a minute and a half, you're perfectly fine. Like, honestly, to require cap stability from a Logi ship is by and large kind of dumb, because usually your fitting will suffer in other places for it. Cap stability is not something Logi needs. You can very much be very effective. Usually cap boosters are for preventing newts, or providing that extra cap in that little bit, but most engagements tend to be over within a couple minutes. They don't tend to be long drawn out fights, and if they are long drawn out fights, usually that means it's because they are not applying enough damage, in which your cap becomes a huge issue.
So if I want to go with a solo setup like that with local reppers as well, like which T2 cruisers would be best for that?
So the cap independent ones are obviously the best, so that would be the Simi and the Oniras. They get more tank usually than their counterparts that need cap chains, for the obvious reason. And so they're just better for that kind of setup.
Alright, and I have another question about fitting. I had a look at like our Guardian fits, and they look a bit different than the ones I see used by other groups. Like, why is that?
I will not comment on that. That is up to the Doctrine Fitting team. I think my opinion on this matter is well known, but I will not voice it here. But that is up to them. So they are the ones that in the end make that decision. So if you're not pleased with these kind of fittings, then that's who you're going to want to talk to.
Well, I just don't know. Like, I didn't understand. Like, why are they different? Like, are they better this way, or?
That's something you're going to want to talk to them about. I don't want to comment here on it. I think that I've made my comments very clear in the past on how I feel about our fitting.
Can you post a Guardian fit that you find interesting or good?
So, for interesting, if I was to pick an interesting Guardian, ones that are interesting but are very weak to jams, obviously, but are actually kind of cool in terms of the idea behind them, I would consider to be the Caboose Guardian, as it is called. That is an interesting fitting. It's the good part about it is it's very much used for. You have to have Logi 5. Freck, as you can see, has posted the fit for you.
Thank you.
I believe that one's a little after the patch is not quite fit. But unfortunately, that one it fits with a 2%, which is easy to pull. Those are interesting. Obviously, it's got quite a bit of tank. The benefit being that you only need 2 Guardians to pull this off, and you get another large rep. So it's cool. I like it. If you were talking, and then there's the 4-2 Guardian, which is your standard kind of Guardian fit. The benefit of the 4-2 Guardian being that Logi 4 pilots can engage can be a part of a fleet with Logi 4, because if they receive both cap transmitters, they are cap stable. And Logi 5 pilots can give what's known as combat cap to members of their fleet. So things like that are good for ANIs and such. Something.
Oh, so that's what combat caps are.
So Logi 5 pilots in a 4-2 Guardian only need 1 cap transmitter on them to be cap stable. So they can then use that other cap transmitter to give. So usually you go either up the chain or down the chain with that one. And then if one of the people in the chain have a Logi 4 pilot, they give the one, down, and then you give one up instead. And then you just give combat cap to fleet members as they require by broadcasting for capacitor. And Logi 5 pilots can lock them up and give them one of their cap transmitters, helping with the cap stability of their main fleet.
Yep, makes sense.
Really sorry, but actually I have another question. So, like, a really long time ago, sometimes what we used to do was that if you didn't require any reps anymore, you would broadcast for in place or something?
So
whatever the broadcast was?
in a main fleet, you do not need to do that. Logi can obviously see when you no longer require reps. They can see it when they lock you. So it's not really a necessary thing to do in a fleet, and it actually just clutters up kind of the broadcast windows if Logi pilots haven't deselected it. So by and large, most Logi pilots will suggest you do not do that. They will in some places. So like in things, it's really useful for if people aren't broadcasting correctly. So if someone's no longer the primary, then the Logi pilots know that they've switched to a new primary. However, if everyone is broadcasting properly, this is not an issue because the person has already broadcasted now that they're got pretty much the whole fleet yellow boxing them, and then they're locked up and they should be getting reps.
Alright.
And Logi pilots will keep you locked up by and large for at least while they have open spaces, because they may always decide that you didn't die last time, but this time may be the right one. But it is always good to broadcast again if you are then reprimaried after you were primaried before. So if you're being primaried, that's one broadcast. If they switch away and then they come back, broadcast again, just to be sure.
I guess it's also nice that with the new patch, people can see the modules that are targeted on them, so they can see if they get reps, and they know if they don't get reps and can rebroadcast.
Yeah.
That's new.
Yep, new.
Yep, that just happened yesterday.
At least it did something good in this patch then.
They did actually quite a bit of interesting things in this patch with a couple different things, but yeah. Any other questions?
Well, yeah, I do actually. So, a while back we had some incidents where Logi was they tried to it was sacrificed unnecessarily. Like, are we currently working on improving that? Like, do we have any, plans on maybe getting dedicated Logi FCs, that kind of stuff. Because yeah, needlessly whelping or that kind of stuff is a bit of a shame.
You have to talk to your FC team about that. I think my position again on this is well known about the position on needlessly whelping things for no reason, but there you go. You'll have to talk to them about that.
I think it's fair enough to whelp if it's more or less known, or I mean, if something happens, you cannot always know the situation. But I mean, if everyone is aware that this is going to be a whelping fleet, so be it. I at least will look into specific Logi FC from my side.
So the biggest thing is a lot of times we have found that it is quite good if we have dedicated Logi anchors, ones that are frequently the Logi anchors, and kind of let them take care of the Logi, and FCs just accept that that's how it is, and that we've led to great success for our Logi wing.
Yep.
That reminds me of Dustin Lee. He was really good at that. I haven't seen him in a long time.
We also had a few other ones in there.
Spam. I haven't seen him as well. Fuck.
There's a few. Most of our ones that we had back in catch have left us. So, but
sad face.
Are you done with your questions?
I don't have anything right now.
What's a good idea to train frigate Logi? Because I have the feeling that it becomes quite useless in the typical fleet we have, because the frigates die so fast that Logi is usually not used at all because they are way too late. For cruisers, it seems to be different. I have more experience with cruiser Logi, so I tend to not fly frig Logi right now because it seems to be useless, but there must be ways to improve that.
So there are actually quite a number of ways, especially with the addition of these new T2 Logi frigates. So it really depends on what you're flying, as per usual. So if you get up and brawl with something like T3Ds, obviously your Logi will not be great, because, hey, T3Ds are really good at killing frigates, because destroyers...
Yeah, Alpha.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. And destroyers are really good at killing frigates. That's kind of their, thing. But if you're flying something like Harpies, which we've flown to great success, in many a time, this new Scalpel adds a lot to that fleet. In that it has such a tiny sig radius that, since you are kind of kitey, it is very hard to hit. Because small sig radius plus moving means, to the point with links, your rapid light caracals apply less than 1 rep from another Scalpel with their volley of missiles. So one rapid light caracal cannot apply to a linked Scalpel that's moving. It applies less than 1 rep from another Scalpel. That is how strong the new logistics frigates are in other things.
What level of Logi do you need to have for the T2 Logi frigates?
So again, Logi 5 is pretty much preferable because that gives you another 4% reduction in sig and another 5% reduction in cap, but again, you can get away with 4. But 4 is a very short train, and there is no reason not really to engage in not have Logi 4. Logistic Frigate 4, I should say, as they've split the skills. So,
What are the requirements for logistics frigates again?
Frigate 5, ratio frigate 5, and then logistics frigate.
So you need ratio frigate 5, and then you need spaceship command 3, long range targeting 4, and signature analysis 5.
While on the topic, what about the attributes? How do you call it? Associated with Logi skills and Logi ship
They are
command.
the same as all other ships, so it is still a perception willpower map. Outside of the cap skills, which are obviously the engineering skills map.
But the actual skills that are applied for using the modules themselves, like.
So for the shield emissions, is that what you like the shield emission and armor emission skills?
Yeah, and like anything else that might be necessary, like.
So the shield emissions, like is int mem. So, but that is a short train. It's only 2 times. So, honestly, the longest trains that you will see in Logi will not be from those. It'll be from the actual skill of logistics cruisers, and which is a 30-day train, I think, without bonuses. And that is a perception willpower. So, none of the skills really for it are too nasty. Otherwise, like they have int mem requirements, like capacitor emission system, your capacitor systems, just like all your core skills have an int mem. But the biggest time train would not be on those, mainly just because they are short times trains. They don't have large multipliers towards their training time. The ones that are like the logistics cruisers, which have a 6 times multiplier, and that is a perception willpower map. As well as Cruiser 5, which, again, has the same thing.
This is more of like a general question, but sometimes I hear people saying that for certain types of activities, it's better to have a dedicated alt. Is logistics such an activity?
It really depends. Some people don't like to shoot people. Some people just like to rep. If that is the case, if you're not a big fan of doing the damage and you're a bigger fan of bringing the heals, then it's completely fine to train on your main. In fact, you should probably train it on your main if you're going to be training Logi. But it's really a matter of what you like to do. If it is not generally a good idea to mainline DPS and Logi, you can do it because DPS is by and large just staying on anchor, locking a target and hitting F1, where Logi is much more in depth. You actually have to pay attention to your cap and all that fun stuff. So, by and large, it tends to be trained on your main.
Yeah, because most skills are short enough to just train while training the other
Exactly.
skills.
So, like, the capacitor, like, all of your normal skills are core skills, right? So your tanking skills, your capacitor skills, all those things are stuff that you can use pretty much anywhere. And
even Cruiser 5.
yeah, and Cruiser 5. So, like, these are skills that you would normally train anyway. The only one is when you actually get into the logistics cruiser, which is a bit of a train.
Yeah, but it's what time? I mean, it's just one skill.
Yes, but it is a sizable skill. It is a month long.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
This is not a question about our doctrine, but more as like an overall view for like which race is the most popular of the T2 Frigs Logi. Like, is there a certain race that stands out in as in use across EVE Online, or like a pirate one that stands out?
So there's no pirate Logi, unfortunately.
Yeah, I just realized that as soon as it came out of my mouth.
It would be awesome if there was, and I think most Logi pilots would cry with joy if that was the case. But yes, so the thing about it is it really depends. It depends on what your group is flying.
Okay, so all of them are pretty balanced, and not one of them is seen like as a trash.
Exactly. So like all of them are pretty good. The signature radius ones have the significant bonuses of having small sig radiuses, which makes them really strong, especially with links, because with links those things go, like I said, low enough and fast enough that rapid light caracals cannot pop them off the field. And making it so rapid light caracals can't remove you from the field adds a huge strength to frigates versus those type deals.
When you're fighting versus an Alpha doctrine, which, well, is focused on removing ships before reps land, like, are there any tricks that you can do with Logi to try and still catch them nonetheless?
So, things you can try and do if you get lucky is to, if they broadcast as they should and they are broadcasting correctly, and the enemy is not necessarily behaving in the most intelligent, just locking firing. They all have the same skills and stuff, or say they yellow box and then 3, 2, 1 fire. The right thing to do at that point would be to just, the second you get yellow boxes, just rep. So the idea there is you want to try and catch any slight bit of extra reps. On armors, you're going to want to drop all 3 instantly, instantly. With shields, you are going to want to stagger. So the idea is they broadcast, you lock, you hit F1, then you hit F2, then you hit F3. And so the idea there is hopefully one of those shields hits in between someone's volley. So it's just enough to keep them alive. And then if they survive the first round, they'll usually live. Because, by that point, they're receiving reps. But sometimes, it just happens, and all you do is just watch as your fleet gets annihilated by Alpha, and you just watch in horror. But, that's really one of the few things you can try and do to prevent your dudes from dying is by staggering your shields and dropping all your armor and hope that your cycle just lands at the right spot to save them. And if everyone does that, maybe someone lands it. Or maybe a couple people.
But at this time, if Alpha hits that hard, then it's time to go anyway. So.
If Alpha's hitting that hard, the FC should be considering not staying on field unless they are burning them faster than you're losing them. But that is, again, an FC decision.
Yeah, and at this time, it's really important to not question the FC. And if he's convinced he can win, just stay on it and try repping. Even if it's 1, you will win the fight.
I think I understand that. That's right. This is a Logi class after all. So let's focus on that.
How bad is the fall off? I mean, is it worth to stay in the optimal, or is it better to sacrifice some reps going out of the optimal to be further away from
By and
the
large,
enemy?
it's better to stay in the optimal because of the stronger reps there. But again, if shit's really hitting the fan and you are just repetitively losing Logi, you may see moving into fall off to protect the Logi so that you can at least so that your dudes can receive some reps rather than no reps because all your Logi's dead. So it's really a tactical decision on the field. Generally, you want to start in optimal, and if you have to, then move into fall off. If the difference is between repetitively losing ships or not.
Is a fall off a constant curve, or is it?
It's all fall off.
The whole. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Cool.
So, it's very much just a tactical decision at the time.
Yeah, of course. Is it a, let's say, useful tactic if you know you're going on a roam and you will be in space for some time to bring, let's say we have shield logic to bring armor drones in case, after a fight you have armor damage and you
So
cannot
yes,
back up.
usually all shield logi will bring armor bots, and armor logi will bring armor bots and maybe hull bots. And you may see shield logi also bringing hull bots as well. So yeah, usually you will see a complement of both, ideally, if you can fit both. So in the simi, you can actually fit hull bots, so you can use them.
Yep, cool.
Any other question?
what's like in your experience the most important things that you should, let's say, learn or understand if you want to be a good Logi pilot?
Cap stability is not important. That is like one of the most important things. So cap management and that it's okay to not be cap stable is really core to Logi. Like, you have to understand that just not being cap stable is completely fine, and you just need to watch your own capacitor. So it would really just be that cap stability is a luxury, not a requirement.
Actually, I have a question. So sometimes, like the mainline DPS is encouraged to tip their Logi pilots for wrapping them really well. Does that also mean that the Logi pilots will tip us for killing the enemies that do a lot of damage?
No, because
really well?
DPS are F1 monkeys, please.
Oh, yeah.
The real problem is Logi pilots get killed but never get on kill board.
And also, Logi also you get to live because we've so deemed it. Don't wanna mess with your Logi.
That's an abuse of power.
It totally is. Logi, if you start dissing Logi, who knows? Maybe reps land a second late on you and you die. It's it's just an accident, of course. But
no, it's not an accident.
Yeah.
People have died because they piss off Logi.
Training into logistics is a very worthwhile effort. It's extremely rewarding when you're able to save a guy who's
that
like
is
in no
one
structure.
of the best feelings. Like when someone's like dead and then they're not dead, and you're like, look, you survived because Logi has willed it.
I can also imagine it being very rewarding when you, let that other guy die that you don't like so much. As we just found out.
Also, you can.
That's only for evil people.
So typically, a lot of brave logistics pilots came to know about logistics by simply flying logistics in standing fleets. In fact, there used to be this crazy guy who used to fly around in a medic Tristan and go around repping tackle all over the place in standing fleets. And in our early days, we used to have a very, very, very strong and dedicated logistics wing, in the sense that you'd hear complaints about it from opposing FCs. So yeah, it's good to get into. Typically, when you move on from Brave, if you're joining a higher SP alliance or people, they tend to have a shortage of logistics people. So what they tend to do is they tend to multi-box logistics and DPS at the same time.
That's a pain.
Yes. If you would like to see an example of that, there are like videos around from our Fountain campaign where BL would be multi-boxing logistics while fighting against us, which is hard to manage. But that's something to keep in mind as well.
Yeah, in tough fights, Logi doesn't have the time to multi-box anyway.
So like DPS is very much just a lock in F1, right? Like you don't even need to look at the screen to do that. You can do that from pretty much like half asleep. And then you just focus mainly on your Logi character.
Yes, that's
yeah,
right.
but if you're flying a simi and you're targeting 10 people at the same time, then you have to F1 monkey your DPS. You're lacking DPS or Logi.
No, it's doable. You are incorrect.
Okay, I never tried.
I've done it in incursion fleets.
Yeah,
and
as you
other ones.
As you become more experienced, it's possible to multi-box DPS and Logi. In other alliances, typically they don't have the luxury of numbers, so this is a skill that some of them actually demand that you are actually good with before they like let you in. Logistics, when it was originally introduced into EVE, was regarded as a little bit of a mockery. How it used to go down was that this was during the time when the sovereignty system was based on passes. So you would have to have the majority control of the moons in a particular system to be able to claim that system. So when logistics was introduced, what a lot of FCs at the time, the best use they could find for them was that you'd park your logistic ships off grid from a pos that you were assaulting, and then while your DPS fleets were assaulting that pos by loading the grid first, because you'd have to do that, and as they were taking damage, like after a successful run, they would like warp to where the logistic ships were parked, and they would get repped there. That was the original usage of logistic ships.
What is the general idea about logistic ships being tackled and attacked by frigates and stuff? I mean, how do you, not prevent it, but how do you communicate that you need help?
So
probably.
So the thing about it is frigates and stuff, obviously, versus like a lot of logistics cruisers and stuff, it's not a big deal. Also, Logi, especially Logi 2 cruisers, can fit DPS bots in their drone bay. And then you show frigates that it's probably not a good idea to be near cruisers that have damaged drones. So, you drop drones, you sick drones, frigate fucks off. Basically.
You'll also, in addition to that, you'll also have sometimes, if your tackle pilots are good in your fleet, what they'll tend to do is that they'll tend to like hang around you because you're away from the other guys at the beginning of an engagement, so they can screen for incoming tackle as well. So for example, you could have a dude in a confessor that's on you, relatively near you, and he's picking off tackle that's flying towards you, because the tackle pilots don't really come into play until it's a decisive engagement.
If you have a lot of EVA on you, would you rather wait it out or what about come back?
So if you have a lot of EWAR, obviously, like damps and shit, like usually a bunch of people will, if that's the case. If you have like damps, kinda you just gotta deal with it. Because warping out, warping back, all they're gonna do is just reapply the second you land, right? So all you've done there is lose a few ships for nothing. The best thing is, sometimes you just gotta wait it out, or if you have a support fleet, which a lot of times you will have some sort of support wing, just be like, guys, can you go, fuck them in the face or something, and then they're done. No more EWAR, problem solved.
Typically what you end up doing is that your Logi anchor communicates to your FC and goes like, hey, we're getting EWAR to death out here. You might want to do something.
We're getting damped to hell, or really, or jammed to hell, I guess. But usually it's damps.
So you'll be like talking to your logistics FC, like your channel, and there are different ways that this can be done. Like in some places Like in your Logi channel, people will type a J or like just an E or a plus symbol or something to let the LC know that he's been jammed or he has EWAR on him. And if the LC sees like a lot of pluses and like the majority of the Logi wing is getting EWAR to help, he'll just like key up and go like Logi's jammed, Logi's damped, what have you. And then it becomes the responsibility of the FC to decide whether he wants to continue the engagement, switch targets to get the EWAR off, or, well, ignore the LC.
Adrian.
Oh.
Adrian, I've been willing to speak to you for quite a while now. Can you help me with fittings? Fittings for PvP?
Well, Ahoda is doing a logistics Q&A right now, but after that, sure, I'll be willing to help you out.
So,
Okay.
yeah, if
Sure.
Do you have any questions about logistics? You ever, do you know what logistics is, Jack? You looked into it?
No. I'm don't want to go healer because I know the hate it will generate from people if you
actually,
don't heal
in
properly.
Eve, it's actually the opposite from every other one. If they don't live, it's because you broadcasted too late. Lol, you deserved it, idiot. That tends to be much more the attitude. Logi pilots are actually much more valued in here than in Eve than they are in any other MMO. So
Okay, I will look into it, but right now I got a skill queue of 40 days, which I intend to make first before training something else, because I do have my priorities there.
I have a question. What's one of the most frustrating, or what's a list of frustrating things that DPS pilots
broadcast
do
for
that
bomb
pisses off
damage.
Logi?
Number one. That is the number one thing.
Yeah.
If you do that, like, you are so lucky that there's no such thing as like a blacklist that they can just never receive your broadcast again, because every Logi pilot in the fleet now hates you. Enjoy. Because it is one of the most obnoxious things to ever see in a fleet. When you're trying to rep, and it will lose you ship. If you broadcast for bomb damage, you are killing one of your friends. Because they'll lock you up thinking that you're primary, and then they'll go to rep you, and then the spoiler was you weren't the primary. Logi knows you've been bombed. They can see. They will get to repping everybody before. The only time you want to broadcast for bomb damage is if it's going to kill you. So if you're a shield ship and you're at 5% shield after the bomb wave, feel free to broadcast. Logi's not going to hold that against you, because you're going to die otherwise. If you're primary, bombs come. That's fine. Again, you're primary. Do not broadcast if you take 10% of your shield and bomb damage. That is number one in things. Number two is probably it would have to be micromanaging. That has been an issue one or two times. It generally gets settled pretty quickly, though. When it comes to FCs trying to micromanage Logi, it doesn't tend to end well for the FC, is the spoiler for that one. You can ask Smog what happened when you tried it in Cat.
I would add late broadcasts. I am always pissed off if I just logged up someone
Yes,
just
late
to see them die.
broadcasts suck, but I mean, you pay for your stupidity with your life, so.
Yeah, I'm still pissed about
it is always sad to lose a ship.
Another thing that's a little bit annoying is when there's a decent sized engagement and all the tackle are broadcast.
Yes. If you're in a frigate, their cruiser fleets, like, Logi doesn't want to have to try and lock you up. It's taking too long.
Sometimes they do because you're the funny frigate and we all want to save you.
Yeah, of course.
If Logi tells you to broadcast as a frigate, then, feel free, have at it. Like, if Logi's bored, then, hey, like, fucking go for it. Like, if they say, all right, frigates, like, we're kind of bored and tired, how about you go ahead and broadcast as well? Then yeah, feel free. But unless told otherwise, assume that they don't want you to broadcast if you're in a frigate in a cruiser fleet.
Yeah, but I mean, Cornac's command Atron, that
Well,
needs
then
to be
yes.
safe.
Like if you have one tackle and like holding tackle, then you hear, all right, everyone, well, he needs to broadcast, and then that's a little different. But usually that'll come from your FC to your Logi anchor, and then your Logi anchor will tell you to do so.
In general, that means you will become a snowflake, as they call it, and you will be put on watch list, and Logi will be actively webbing you as much as they can. The same like other
Victors.
ships. If you're special,
Recons.
Victors, whatever, then sometimes links if they're in
like
fleet.
These are just the these are the special snowflakes. They get a watch list spot.
And that means you can hope for all the webs you want. And we actively web you. So on Logi, we used to have a dedicated Logi channel called Ugly Ducklings. Will we still use it, or will we make a new one?
Honestly, I would suggest that the new one is made. But that is not up to me at the time. So it is very much kind of up to you. But the Ugly Ducklings channel is owned by someone who's no longer in Corp. So yeah,
that's why I ask. So I'm officially closing it now. Oh, yay, bye.
Any other questions?
Well, with the advent of the Logi frigs, Tech 2 wise, is there any point in bringing those, say, to a cruiser fleet?
By
or
and
such?
large, no, just because they're not gonna rep enough to save a cruiser. It'd just be better to bring the Tech 1 version of the cruiser Logi, which would be the execs or the scythes. Those are the ones that generally you will see used in Tech 1, because in the Tech 1 they are the better options 99.9% of times out of 100. Just because they are the better version. So. Anyone else? No one has any other questions about Logi?
I will just link a Crossing Zebras post on how to be a Logi anchor. It's a really useful post by a former FC
It
of
was
Brave.
it wasn't a former FC, he was Logi anchor for Brave. It was Dunk.
Yep. He was our first.
No, it wasn't Dunk. It's not that old.
It's by Dunk. It says right at the bottom about the author, Dunk Dinkle.
Yeah, that's Dunk.
Yeah.
Ooh, sorry, my mistake.
He was our first logistics anchor for Brave newbies.
I thought I was thinking
Logi
something
anchor
else.
one is by Dunk.
My bad. Excuse me.
The logistics anchor chain goes from Dunk to Dishing to No Way to Swen to Malbrick to Ahodam.
But that is a very good article. If you're ever interested in Logi anchoring, then that is good. Also, talking to Logi anchors is not a bad thing. You can always message people. This is a game where you can talk to pretty much anybody. And as long as or whatever, you mail them in game or whatever and say, hey, I'm interested in X, Y, and Z. Can you help me? Well, I mean, it doesn't even need to be in Brave. Like, if they, even out of Brave, you can talk to other people that aren't in Brave. This is, if there's something you want to learn and you know someone that's really good at it, don't hesitate to go outside of Brave to talk to these people, to ask them about that, because most of the time people will help you. So, any other ones? Anyone else interested in becoming a space priest? The savior of the F1 monkeys, bringer of heals.
I'm already one, so
Yeah,
don't need to convince
totally.
me.
Exactly.
Alright, no one has any questions? I guess we'll call that there. I mean, if you have any questions later, you think of something, you can always just ask in here. Or, mail someone. Generally, you'll get an answer. Mail me, mail Frack, you can mail Deshang, you can mail any of them.
All right. Maybe one last thing. Not that important right now, but what comes after Cruiser
After
Logi?
Cruiser Logi, so the thing about it is, after Cruiser Logi, the only Logi after that is your triage and soon to be fax machines, force auxiliaries. Yeah, which awesome name, because then if you don't rep someone, it was because you're out of toner. But it's capital Logi, but that is quite a bit of an investment, and by and large, you don't generally want capital pilots on your main. So
Yep. Okay.
I would suggest, if you are that interested in going to the next tier of Logi after Cruiser Logi, that you look into training triage and then the fax machine.
No, it's rather to know what is the potential next step, if there's something in between, because I don't know anything.
Unfortunately, nothing after Tech 2 Logi.
Yeah. Unless CCP wants to bless us with Tech 3
what do you
Logi.
mean? Tech 3 can fit Logi ships. Just ask the Alliance tournament. Heyo.
But yeah. Next step is triage, where you show up and you say,
Thank you,
no,
Ripping.
you are not going to kill this fleet
until they
here,
dread bomb
buddy.
you.
Goodbye.
Thank you, Tinker.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
Right. There's no. Is there T3 Cruiser Logi stuff?
Yes and no. There are subsystems that make you rep more. Problem being, it doesn't give you the range or the tank. Like, it's very situational. Right?
Yeah. All right. It's very situational in the sense of, if you have unlimited ISK to spend, you could probably do it, but
just don't
do it
bring Tech 3 Logi. It's not actually generally better than Tech 2 Logi, with a few exceptions. Scenarios like the Alliance tournament, where you do something called a Tinker.
All right.
So, any other questions? Alright. Well, I'll just call that the end of that.